The presidential hall burned in silence, not from heat, but from something invisible in the air, something tense, dangerous, as if even the walls knew that betrayal was walking among them. Captain Adama Kone crossed the red carpet with measured steps, in his hand a transparent crystal glass. But inside there was not just water, there was death. Enough poison to extinguish a man's flame within minutes. A man named Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso, a war leader, a symbol of hope. And, as far as anyone knew, a friend of Adama. A few meters away, Traoré waited, motionless, inscrutable. Adama thought, no one knows anything, but maybe he was wrong. And when he extended the glass with sweaty hands, a conflicted heart, and destiny hanging over an abyss, time seemed to stop. But to understand how this scene, full of betrayal, money, and a president who knew everything, came to be, we need to go back to the beginning. Everything started with a closed-door meeting, not in Burkina Faso, but more than 4,000 kilometers away, in an underground room of an old European bank in the center of Brussels. Suits sat around a glass table, some with French accents, others with British English. None of them were officially politicians, yet they moved countries like chess pieces. At the center of the table, a hologram spun slowly, showing an image. Ibrahim Traoré. Name marked in red. Status, geopolitical obstacle. Since taking power, Traoré had refused to sign contracts with Western companies, expelled foreign troops, and nationalized mineral resources like gold and uranium. To them, he wasn't just a rebellious leader. He was a threat to the system. Attempts at dialogue had failed, sanctions had no effect, and defamation campaigns only made him more popular. Then someone said the phrase that changed everything. If we can't reach him from the outside, we'll destroy him from within. The plan wasn't to kill a president. The plan was to corrupt his closest loyalty. No bullets, no wars, just a glass and a price high enough to buy even a soldier's conscience. Among all the names analyzed, one stood out in the European spy reports: Captain Adama Kone. Son of peasants, survivor of a massacre in his youth, adopted by a commander of the Burkinabe army, and later trained under the direct mentorship of Ibrahim Traoré. He wasn't just part of the presidential security, he was a brother, but also a man with shadows. Financial reports showed that Adama had a sick sister hospitalized in a private clinic abroad, with growing debts for treatments not covered by the army. Moreover, a barely visible detail caught the Europeans' attention. He had been emotionally withdrawing from the team. Fewer smiles, more silence, more doubts. The proposal was made through a corrupted former African officer, now exiled in Europe. 100 million CFA francs converted into crypto assets with the promise of release after the mission. Plus, a new identity, a new life, and above all, a guarantee that no one would ever know. Adama took days to respond. The poison would be delivered safely, undetectably. He just had to place it in the glass and deliver it. Just that. A glass. Nothing more. For the sake of his sister. For the end of his suffering. You don't want this forever, do you? In the last message received on the disposable phone, there was only one emoji, a glass, and the date of the ceremonial event. Adama deleted the screen, took a deep breath, and replied, "I'm in." The vial arrived hidden inside a book, a rare edition of The Prince by Machiavelli, sent as a symbolic gift by a cultural delegation from Belgium. The package passed through scanners, security eyes, and sniffer dogs, but the poison was sealed inside an invisible capsule hidden in the book's spine. Adama himself received the gift, as planned. The following night, he broke the spine with a knife and retrieved a small glass tube. Inside, a translucent, colorless liquid, odorless, tasteless. Codename, Lotus Shadow. A neurovascular toxin developed in clandestine Eastern European laboratories. A single drop in contact with mucous membranes would paralyze the heart in less than 3 minutes. The next day, a symbolic ceremony was scheduled in the main hall of headquarters, a gesture reaffirming the trust between Traoré and his elite soldiers. Among the event protocols, there was a routine detail. The soldiers would bring glasses of water to the president and the generals as a sign of respect. It was the perfect opportunity. Adama spent a sleepless night rehearsing over and over. From pocket to glass, from glass to tray, nothing could go wrong. But something inside him was no longer silent. In a moment of distraction, he opened the vial and stared at it under the dim light. So simple, so quiet, capable of bringing down a man loved by millions and perhaps stripping the last vestige of honor from within himself. Ibrahim Traoré had always been a man of war, not just with weapons, but with eyes, with listening. He learned early on that betrayal never comes screaming. It comes in the details, and in recent days, the details had started to scream. Adama, his loyal shadow, now avoided his gaze. His steps were more calculated, his presence colder. There were no fights, no explicit distancing, but something had changed. During an informal meeting with his closest advisors, Traoré remained silent for long minutes, staring at the teacup in front of him until he spoke, almost as if thinking out loud. "They won't shoot me, not anymore. Now they want to use one of us." Everyone exchanged glances. General Issouf Zongo, the man who fought against Traoré in the early battles, was the only one who immediately understood. He lowered his eyes and whispered, "Do you suspect someone?" Traoré responded only with a question. "And if it were you? If someone offered everything you've ever wanted, would you warn me or smile until the last second?" Silence. That night, Traoré didn't sleep. He spent hours looking through documents, videos, records, but deep down he already knew. It wasn't proof he needed. It was courage. And then he gave the order that changed everything. "Let the event happen, but watch every second. And when the moment comes, don't touch him. My weapon will be another." The hall was impeccable. Flags in every corner. Discreet politicians in the background, cameras positioned at meticulously calculated angles. But the real spectacle was not in the protocol. It was in the glass. Captain Adama Koné wore the ceremonial uniform. He closed his eyes for a few seconds before entering. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, but the tube of poison, now dissolved in the water, was lighter than air. Outside, the people shouted words of support. Inside, the silence was tense, as if everyone were breathing without knowing why they were anxious. When Traoré entered, the soldiers saluted in unison, but his gaze went directly to a single point: the captain. He walked toward him, holding the tray, step by step, as rehearsed. But it was no longer just a protocol, it was a sentence. A few meters from the president, the captain felt sweat running down his back. The hall seemed smaller, the air denser, and even so, he kept approaching. Traoré reached out naturally, but before touching the glass, he looked the captain in the eyes and spoke softly, almost as if praying, "You still have a choice." In that instant, time stopped. The captain froze, his hand trembling, guilt screaming inside him. Traoré's eyes showed neither fear nor anger, only disappointment and compassion. And then the captain made a move. But what he did, no one there could have ever imagined. Captain Koné stood still. The glass was still in his hand, but the motion had stopped in mid-air, as if Traoré's words, "You still have a choice," had cut the strings of betrayal. Before the poison could ever touch the president's lips, 1 second, 2, 3, and then the tray slipped. It was not thrown nor purposefully dropped, it was simply released. The glass hit the ground and shattered, splashing water over Traoré's feet. The entire hall froze. Guards reached for their weapons. The sound of boots moving echoed like thunder across the marble floor. But Traoré raised his hand and said just one word: "No." Everyone stopped, including the captain, who now trembled, his eyes wet, his breathing failing. The president stepped forward, then another step, and when he reached him, He embraced the man who had almost killed him. "What you almost did is unforgivable," he said, "but what you just did is unforgettable." The captain fell to his knees. He did not beg, did not try to flee. He simply cried, like someone who for a moment felt human again. And in that room where a judgment was expected, there was only silence and forgiveness. While the country digested what had happened in the presidential hall, a parallel operation was underway thousands of kilometers away. In the humid early hours on the coast of Abidjan, Julian Morrow, a former French agent and mentor of the operation, was captured in a joint African counterintelligence action. He did not resist, did not attempt to flee, as if he already knew the game was over. At the detention center, he was placed in a dark room with only a camera and a voice that said, "Tell everything." Morrow spoke, and what he revealed could not be buried. Encrypted spreadsheet with bank transfer, direct contact with lobbyists from multinational mineral company, and communication from European politician referring to Traoré as a rogue asset. Recordings showed meetings with businessmen and military representatives openly discussing the need to neutralize the president of Burkina Faso before his influence could spread. There were documents linking shell companies based in Belgium, secret contract involving uranium mine, and even plan to replace Traoré with a more cooperative leader. Everything was there, digital, filmed, signed. We create monsters and call them allies, but when someone is born who cannot be bought, we call them a threat, Morrow said with a bitter smile. The bomb had been armed, but now it exploded in the hands of those who tried to control the world from behind the scenes. 2 days after the incident, every headline still echoed the same question: what will Ibrahim Traoré do now? They expected rage. They expected a purge, an exemplary punishment, maybe even diplomatic war. But Traoré chose another answer. In a live broadcast across the continent, the president appeared before the cameras, without security, without uniform, without a luxurious backdrop. At his side was Captain Koné. Yes, the man who had tried to poison him. The image shocked the world, but what Traoré said entered history. They thought that by buying one of us, they could break all of us. They offered my brother everything dirty money can buy, but he, even with dirty hands, chose to step back. And that is worth more than all the gold beneath Africa's soil. Captain Koné remained silent, head bowed, tears in his eyes, not from weakness, but from relief. The same ones who create heroes with prizes and pats on the back are the ones who try to kill leaders with poison. But today, no bodies died. Today, the illusion that we are still a colony died. He was applauded not only in his country, but in dozens of squares across the continent, not because he survived, but because he responded with greatness. Adama Koné was not executed, not exiled, nor rewarded. He was demoted, but given a mission to rebuild his honor by serving the truth. He was appointed as the commander of a new special group, the Guardians of Truth, an elite unit trained not only to protect the president, but to defend the principles of sovereignty, transparency, and loyalty within the armed forces themselves. Julian Morrow was deported to Burkina Faso, not to be lynched, but to be heard. Publicly judged, he exposed everything and, unknowingly, gave voice to a people who had long shouted without being heard. And Traoré returned to the streets without bulletproof glass, without fear, wearing the same worn beret, with the same gaze of someone who does not carry power but represents it. On the wall of the new Guardians' headquarters, they engraved a phrase spoken by Traoré that morning: "Those who buy bodies will never understand the value of a free soul." And from that day on, no glass was just a glass, no hand was just a gesture. Because trust, when it survives poison, becomes eternity. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support is essential to help more people discover stories like this one and many others we share here.